Betsy DeVos has hired a number of individuals who used to work at for-profit colleges throughout the country and then proceeded to squash any investigations into fraudulent behaviors or activities by said for-profit colleges. Now, for-profit colleges are different from traditional public and private universities in that they have investors, they are solely there to turn a profit, and any money that they make outside of the revenue used to pay for their costs to operate goes into the pockets of these investors. So a lot of these for-profit colleges in the past have gotten into a lot of trouble because they essentially lied to students during the recruiting process, lied to them about job placement numbers, they inflated statistics. They also convinced a lot of these students to take out tens of thousands of dollars in federal student loans and then proceeded to give them a degree that in a lot of cases weren't even accredited and wouldn't get them hired. So under the Obama administration, there were some new regulations to help stop this behavior from happening. But then Trump gets elected, Betsy DeVos gets named as the head of the education department, and then she undoes or decides to undo those regulations. Now, according to a recent report by the New York Times, the unwinding of the team, this was an investigatory team within the Department of Education, killed investigations into possible fraudulent activities at several large for-profit colleges where top hires of Betsy DeVos had previously worked. Just to give you a little more information about these investigations, the investigation into DeVry University, for instance, ground to a halt early last year. Later, DeVos named Julian Schmoke, a former dean at DeVry, as the team's new supervisor. So the guy who used to be a dean at DeVry gets named the supervisor of this team that's supposed to investigate for-profit colleges like DeVry.
And specifically, DeVry itself. No, that's the thing about the Trump administration. They rub the corruption in your face. And they go, what are you going to do about it? Trump can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and his idiot followers will say that that guy had it coming. And so they're not paying attention. They don't care. They don't care how corrupt Donald Trump is. He just made a deal with the Chinese and sold out American jobs. That was the core of his promise. And he did it so he can get money from the Indonesians. They don't care. So here they're like, well, there are no rules left. Nobody's minding the shop and everybody's worried about porn stars in Russia, et cetera. Just run roughshod. So who should we get to investigate DeVry? Oh, I got an idea. We'll get the dean at DeVry to investigate DeVry. That's a nice little joke on the rest of us.
So the investigation into DeVry wasn't the only investigation that ended. Investigations into Bridgepoint Education and Career Education Corporation also went dark. By the way, that Schmoke guy isn't the only person who got hired by DeVos and who has a past working for these for-profits. Robert Edel was a top lawyer for for-profit universities. He got hired into the education department. Diane Ayer is another example. Carlos Munoz is another example. These are all Betsy DeVos hires who had very comfy, cozy ties with for-profit colleges that, again, defrauded students, put them in a massive amount of debt, and gave them, in some cases, if the students finished the program, degrees that wouldn't get them hired. So I want to give you guys a little more background on for-profits. I used to talk about it a lot in the past, and then after Obama passed some regulations, you know, luckily, a lot of these schools shut down. A lot of them had to pay huge settlements, including DeVry, by the way. But Vox did a really great video kind of giving you an explainer as to why these schools are so problematic. Take a look.
Compared to other colleges, for-profit institutions attract more low-income people, veterans, and other non-traditional students. Also known as proprietary colleges, for-profit institutions are operated by private, profit-seeking businesses, which means earnings get passed on to owners or shareholders. That sets them apart from most universities and colleges, which are nonprofits. Those state schools, community colleges, and private nonprofits are funded by a bunch of different sources in addition to tuition, like donations, investment income, or government subsidies. But for-profit schools rely almost entirely on tuition and fees paid with federal student aid money. So they have a strong incentive to recruit more students and set them up with large financial aid packages or tap into veterans' military benefits.
So they specifically target federal money in order to make a profit. So that's important because that federal money comes from where? It comes from you, the taxpayer. So these corporate shills are getting rich off of your taxpayer money by defrauding students. But it shouldn't surprise you under the Trump administration. It shouldn't surprise you that they would push for these types of deregulations and stop any investigation into institutions that defraud students. Trump himself had to pay a massive settlement because of Trump University, which was a fraudulent for-profit college. So it's all disgusting. And these students, in a lot of cases, aren't able to get rid of this debt, even if they were defrauded, right? Student loan debt is the only form of debt that people cannot get rid of, even if they file for bankruptcy. And when you look at the statistics in terms of those who default, even though about 11% of students go to for-profit colleges, about half of the defaults come from these institutions, students who went to these institutions.
So let me give you a couple other quotes that I think are really interesting. So we're going to go to graphic 61 here. So if you're wondering, well, I mean, do they really do it though? Do they really defraud people? Well, DeVry agreed to pay $100 million in 2016 to settle a separate Federal Trade Commission lawsuit alleging that it misled prospective students with ads about employment and salaries after graduation. Now, here's what for-profit corporations do not do: pay $100 million fines if they didn't do it. They've got an army of lawyers, so they figured, oh, that's a small part of what we took off the students through our scams, so we'll pay them. So those investigations definitely should have continued at the Education Department, and they were snuffed out. So when asked about it, Elizabeth Hill, a spokeswoman for the Education Department, had one of my favorite quotes. She said, well, yeah, this team has been greatly diminished. It's down to 3 people that are doing the investigations, and it's, again, the people who used to run those institutions. So,
and by the way, real quick, they don't even do investigations anymore. The only thing they do is student loan forgiveness application processing.
In fact, that's what this quote is about. She says, conducting investigations is but one way the investigations team contributes to the department's broad effort to provide oversight. What would be the other way? Not conducting investigations? It's called the investigations team. And she just said, well, do we really need to conduct investigations? They're so brazen. They don't care. The corruption's right out in front of everybody for you to see. Finally, I want to give a quote from Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's been fighting against these scams for a long time. Because I do want to give credit to progressives who've had enough of this crap and are fighting back forcefully. Now, there's not a lot of them. Most of the Democrats love to work with the Trump administration while they huff and puff about resistance. But in this case, Warren said, Secretary DeVos has filled the department with for-profit college hacks who only care about making sham schools rich and shutting down investigations into fraud. There you go. That is exactly right. Senator Elizabeth Warren fighting the good fight there. But in this case, all those investigations will come to an end, and the fraud will continue thanks to the Trump administration. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.